So we had Julie Roy. Julie Roy's she's a Christian journalist, and she had broke this story last week about this dude here. Excuse me. He's still he's apologising for his comments that he had made previously, saying that, you know, if I well, let's if I have a look at the article. It was national outrage was sparked. Now, Julie, I think Christian journalism. I remember when the first God channel was launched. I remember the team that worked in that, and then all of a sudden, you know, satellite technology. I remember Celtic Park, Billy Graham came to Celtic Park, and they used satellite technology to beam the service up to the guys on the rigs. And they specifically targeted the rigs and the prisons. And they filled up Celtic Park with Catholics and Protestants, which was a feat in itself. And why I look back at the 90s as no ever being as bad as what I thought they were at the time. No, I'm not. At the time, if I was in that mindset, I would have been happy. And I'm still happy for a lot of reasons for that, because it did bring about a lot of peace. It sowed the seeds that came about later on in communities, you know, these sort of events brought communities together. That had previously, you know, been entrenched in sectarianism and the same old battle or the same old gods, if you ask me. But this, you know, this guy is just, in America, this would have been seen as normal for an older pastor to have said something like that. You know, I think this is just your typical man of the era of the 50s or something. You know, this is what it reminds me of, that kind of mindset, that sexist male. And he still sees his wife as, you know, a child that's there to obey and take orders and provide for him. Mother nurturer, you know, I mean, pity, as they say. You know, these men that want, you know, they basically want to be mothered. Do you know? Well, this is the, you know, this is the crew here. And what he's saying is, he's telling us who he is. You know, he says, you know, if you wear a pair of denim shorts in front of me and I rape you, don't blame me. So there's this sort of, I mean, I hate the word perverted, but, you know, because it's I don't know, just reminds me of John Knox calling women who's Jezebels. You know, that horrible, nasty, wee bony finger man that points a finger and speaks with poisoned tongue. Aye, it's him. So when you use that backbone name and you see them through that lens and you scrutinise them with the same sort of lack of mercy, if you like. I see pocket change janglers, you know, a spirit of Jezebel is on these males, you know, the spirit of Bunny Boylan is rested upon them. You know, they've not done it once or twice, they are the thing, you know. And, you know, I agree with mercy over judgment in a decent law system that isn't brutal and archaic. But I don't, you know, I don't fall for this kind of justice. You know, you wear shorts, hen, and you're gonna get raped. I mean, what kind of, you know, in his mindset, that's just, she deserves that. That's her justice. She deserves that, you know. So Julie's brilliant. Obviously, right, she's like professional journalist and she speaks properly, unlike people like me, you know, like the bitches and the Jezebels. Like, we're not here to make money or have a profession out of being a Christian journalist, as opposed to a Catholic journalist or a Buddhist journalist or a Muslim journalist or a Jewish journalist. I don't know anymore. I just know that it divides and conquers everybody, all these different systems that we really do hold on to them, don't we? Yeah. So a step in the right direction. It's always 2 steps forward and another one back, as an ex-friend had wrote a song about. You know, in the church, there's never really much progress that's made, and if there ever is any, it's like a wee 20 millimetre at a time, you know. Pardon me, I didn't have the patience. Well, I had a lot of patience for them. They ran out, you know. You can only take so much shenanigans for people. Pardon me. You know, and there's forgiving your brother 7 times 7, and then there's taking the piss, you know. So, in my experience, a lot of Christians have this mindset. And so it's been the work of that great prophet Sinead O'Connor started a great movement against one of the worst dens of iniquity, where this kind of, you know, bile pours forth through the lips of the men in the pulpits, you know. You deserve to get raped, you know. Children are... Oh, that way was provoking him. I mean, she was 13, you know. This is what we're looking at here. You know, I'm not saying specifically with him in that regard there, but certainly it spills over, you know, because when we look at the mindset, every patriarchal religion has made a victim out of some young lassie. I mean, can you imagine being about 14 or 13 and God's holy messenger of light kind of invades your room one night, you know, and you're just sitting there, you know, in your private space and boundary, and in comes, you know, the angel Gabriel, where, you know, it's a mission to save the world, and you know, there's not much pressure. There's not much coercion here. He didn't turn up himself. He sent his pal. He sent his messenger to ask you. He's not asking you. He's saying you've to have his way. I mean, can you imagine? If you model yourself on that kind of God, and I know that's offending a lot of people, but you know, just because we're familiarised with it and it's normalised to us doesn't mean to say it's right, and I don't think it is. So I think that's where these men come from. They see women, children, for a place of being property. You know, we're still no autonomous, separate human beings from them. You know, we're an extension of them, and that's what, you know, the pop psychologists call narcissists, right, these days, which I don't really follow. I don't follow that whole fad, but there's certain truths within. When we go to reach for words, you know, to describe people who have got no empathy, lack of remorse, and conscience, you know, and they just don't seem to care. You know, it's traits that can be quite dangerous in individuals, and so they do. They float to the top of their professions, and there's certain professions that they're, you know, drawn towards, where they'll have access to people and opportunity, you know, to offend. As all the safeguarders out there know, that's the kind of MO with this type. But to stand in a pulpit, right, I used to believe that this was the sanctuary. You know, the Holy of Holies, we used to go to the Holy of Holies in the sanctuary. We would enter into a really, you know, that place where you're supposed to take your shoes off, you know, because the ground that you were on was holy ground. You know, this is access into God's throne room. You know, the king and his, you know, authority. When you go to church, apparently, you know, this is what you're taught. You're in the sanctuary. You've got to come, you know, dressed and in your right mind. You know, you've got to present yourself and attend. And so it's supposed to be held in this kind of, you know, as you know, a state of kind of, it's a pure place to be. You come and be purified, you know, by this kind of message. So his comments on rape had sparked a national outrage, but he's apologised. He's saying he failed to withhold the biblical values of love and compassion, and he feels deep regret for statements that he made from the pulpit. You know, there's such a responsibility on these men. It's like any of, you know, in terms of official capacity, you know, they've got authority in the communities. You know, they almost kind of police communities, or the people that go. They're sort of policed and managed, you know, and steered in a certain direction by these types of men, you know. And he used that, you know, it'd be like a police officer using his uniform to make a statement like that. You don't say that for the office, for the mantle of the office. You don't say that. So good on Julie and the rest of the family who are now starting to wake up. Who am I? Nobody perfect. I'm no casting stones. I'm just one of the first survivors of the vineyard to stand up against some really dangerous men, and trying to sound the alarm at the vineyards, targeting the young girls that maybe would take the blame and listen to these sermons and go, oh, you know, I was wearing shorts that day. I definitely deserved it. It was my justice. I deserved that. That was my karma. You know, such dangerous mindsets allow sexual predators to continue doing what they're doing, and it keeps victims in blame and shame. And that blame and shame affects us, and it does, you know, for a long time. I used to think, you know, we're all survivors and how amazing are we don't do anything wrong. Well, we do. And we're no perfect. Nobody ever said that we were, but we're made to feel so less than all our lives, you know. I think there's a sort of attempt to overcompensate for that when you're, you know, so-called healing, you know, the pendulum will swing from one extreme to the other in order to find that balance, and some survivors just go into that whole, you know, there's just a place where you have to go sometimes to you know, it might look like narcissism to some people is really just deep self-care and boundary setting, you know. It's all about motivation in the heart and where you're coming from when you do something. If you're being controlled or trafficked or coerced, or there's a gun to your family's head, you're being told to do something that you would never normally do, or you've been drugged and you've done something, you know, I'm speaking to some of the girls in Lebanon. Don't you ever feel guilty about what these guys made you do? Right? Because I know that like these men here, they operate for a system of manipulation, guilt. You know, they'll use guilt. And it's their own guilt that they're attempting to put their guilt onto you. And these are the psychological, I mean, what is this? Like battery acid getting poured on you mentally? This guilt, and it's toxic, it's corrosive, it's really damaging. And I'm one of the people that try to come for a place of no shame for the coercion, and I'm trying to tell my sisters, don't feel that don't let that hold you back. And I know the power of the shame in the communities. I know what it's like. I love it. We get smeared with the same brush as we're abusers, the victims do, you know, and it comes to this whole twisted doctrine. You know, I've heard some of my survivor brothers speaking about this, you know, and they were like, well, it's almost like, you know, it's almost like we're bitten by vampires, and these people believe that we're vampires. And I was just like, for the majority of people who have been abused, it's the last thing that they would ever want to carry that shame, you know. Because you know that's the whole thing. Survivors feel shame, abusers don't. Abusers just they just do what they do, and or they might have a twinge, you know. But I think if a survivor does something wrong, they're that used to carrying everybody else's toxic blame that, you know, the shame and the guilt can eat them up, and that's something that we need to deal with. You just fucking lay it down, you know. fling it away when it doesn't belong to you. I mean, I don't mean don't take responsibility for the things that you are responsible for. So that's kind of nuance there. And it's about understanding, you know. So these men are they are putting their guilt and their blame onto victims and survivors, and they're trying to make victims and survivors like a big scapegoat, like like the same that they do with Jesus. You know, he's just a big scapegoat. They do what they do. They go to him, they ask for forgiveness, and then they go and they do it again. Pardon me, that's my belly rumbling with some hunger. I think I'm going to have a banana. Excuse me. I think I was annoying some people because I was eating in my last video. But I'm just sitting ranting a stream of thought, you know. If I get hungry, I get hungry. You need a bit of potassium in your life. So, it's went viral. So, you see the internet being used to police people. So now the pastor's being policed by the internet. It's a funny expression, that viral. Like a virus. It spreads. So it's the Bible Baptist Tabernacle in North Carolina. And his name's Bobby Leonard. So he's defending men that rape women in shorts. He's basically just sending out a message to all the girls that are sitting there, you know. It's a shame, toxic. Young girls and women are so aware of our bodies because we're made to feel that way constantly. And this is one of the ways it's done. I mean, basically what he's doing there is he's having a wee fantasy to himself and his kidney cell on that, it's about preaching. So this is how so-called godly men, they think they're godly and they call each other godly, and they're actually like filth. And the godlier they appear to be, the more filthy they are. It's true. The more baths they need to take every day, the more showers they need, the more they need to have the house polished and spick and span and clean. You know, the Catholic guilt complex, we used to call it, and we used to have to scrub everything all the time. We were just made to clean. And when I got my own house, I just remember thinking, oh, and you're compulsed. It was like Monica for Friends. I remember watching that and thinking, oh my God, she can't let these shoes lie out in the living room. She's got to get up and move them. You know, I mean, what is that? You know, we suffered for it. It's like OCD, well, I call it the Catholic guilt complex, because they make you feel that dirty that you can't scrub enough. And that's how, like, the top tiers, when you get into you go on the path onto the monk path, into the monastery, into the mystic. You end up, you meet these people and they self-flagellate. They batter themselves with, spikes and stuff on an evening, and you realise this is just a really weird psychological BDSM club at the top, Aye, it is actually. Because a lot of the systems that have been put in place by patriarchy and, history and leading up until just now have all been male dominated. Dominated by the male thinking, dominated by the male mind. Psychiatry and the medical world being perfect examples of both. The whole medical books are geared towards what the male anatomy, everything's based on what the male anatomy responds to. And females are different, but there's no blueprint for us. We're just sort of like wonky men in the eyes of doctors, and this patriarchal system that produced the medical universities where they train people up to be healers. It's such a contradiction in terms of what they've become these days, cutting people up for profit and doing it for cosmetic reasons. That's where a lot of them, I'm not saying all the doctors do that. I'm saying that there's a bigger and bigger section of doctors moving into that area. And, you know, how communities will say, you know, you need to be a doctor. Why would anybody want to be if you look at the climate? And it's, you know, they're kind of being hoisted by their own petard. You know, a lot of it has definitely been money that's took over. You know, so you've got, it's, again, profit. It just, when it's the motivation for everything, nothing works, everything breaks down. And that's, you know, call it what you like. You know, these guys on the national walls that we Scott, always obsessed with socialism. Scott, I'm not a socialist, right? I come from a place of educating myself, right, with facts and evidence. And so when a system doesn't work, I try and identify what it is that's caused it not to work. And every time I've looked at any system, good or bad, it's always been the people and the men that lead it that fucked it up and turned it into something else that it was never intended to be. But by God, you know, if Jesus wasn't a socialist feeding the 5,000, if, you know, Ananias and Sapphira, you know, God struck them down dead because they held back for the gang. Do you know what I mean? They didn't put everything into the purse. You know, anyway, systems of control. It's powerful NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, or words that control your thinking, that controls your behaviour. You know, thanks Bernays and Freud. It's how psychology and that was used against us. You know, they didn't learn these things in order to help heal us. They only just, you know, they sell us tablets that don't work for diseases that they made up. I mean, that's becoming evident, you know. But basically, there's a heart of the patriarchy that's just really all about profit, and that just destroys everything. You can't be motivated solely by profit. You know, it's partly what it is, but it can't be the only motivator, because that's just a toxic route. So, this dude, you know, I mean, it's all been said. A man's a man. It's just direct apportioning of blame. What we would have called years ago, it's not just anti-victim prejudice. Do you know what I mean? This is victim blaming. You know, it's and there's a stronger term we need for that. I think it murders people. I think it causes a lot of survivors to kill themselves when they take on the guilt of their abuser, and that's why the abusers work so hard to do it, you know. You know, they work so hard to find, you know, in the lab, or, you know, if somebody stumbles on a scientific finding, right, that you know, that stands up to scrutiny and scientific rigorous testing, and produces, you know, a cure for cancer, you know, that's we're not going to sit there and say, but see the person that done that, we wouldn't argue that they had done something when they were, you know, they had, you know, dropped litter, or they had got a, you know, they'd get a fine for, I don't know, spitting in the street or something, for, say, you know, something minor in comparison to, say, murder or rape. And so there's a sort of, in the church, there's an attempt to bring everybody into the same sort of guilt basket, if you like. So they apportion blame without measure. And they're just stupid. Do you know what I mean? There's no nuance here, you know. There's no depth of thought. And it's just really all about kind of like, church became an exercise in dumping everything on Jesus and on women. You know, the women would be running about doing the Sunday school, making the tea, making the cakes, making the sandwiches. As we do in life, we take the brunt of everything. While the guy stands there and takes all the glory and does the easy bit and makes it all look, you know, makes him look good. So he gets his narcissistic milkshake, while the females, you know, his daughters, his granddaughters, I wonder if he's got daughters or granddaughters, nieces and nephews, sisters. He's got a mum. And that shouldn't be the... But by God, how disrespectful is he being to them? How's his granddaughter, feeling when she hears her granddad saying that? Could you imagine if she ended up having to need somebody to confide in, and she heard her granddad saying that? She would know right away that was the wrong person to go to. So, credit to Julie and the other sisters and brothers that are trying to work to get some justice within a system that, guys, it's rigged against you. Jesus is the ultimate victim. He's the ultimate survivor in the story. It's all made okay because of the resurrection. What's made okay? Well, the torture and murder by yourself or your dad by you, depending on what your stance on the Trinity is. It's a father murdering his son. It's got echoes of Abraham and Isaac. Infanticide, or killing a member of your family. Under the it's like an honour killing, isn't it? That religion can justify the most heinous acts of evil and make them look noble, and that's why, for me, I'm sort of like, I went from atheist to like anti-theist, and now I'm just sort of I'm travelling along. And that's what I'm saying about the scientific process, right? You can't set your mind on. You have to keep an open mind in science, and ad hominem plays absolutely no part in what the facts that are presented are. So it ties into what I'm saying here about victim blaming, because it doesn't matter what a victim's done here. If she wore shorts, if she had a drink that night, if she spoke and she was flirting, she's not to blame for anybody else's crime that they committed, their actions against her. She's got absolutely no power over that man. And what you're saying is that she has. So you're telling us, Pastor, that you're no safe around women? Let's just hear what he said.
You find more women go in those places with shorts than you will women with pants and dresses put together. Try it. If you got time, try it.
It's a Christian
Have your boy
Taliban.
go up there and try it. Just watch for him. Have your girl go up there and watch for him. And I used to say this. I haven't said this in a long time. You ready? I said, if you dress like that and you get raped and I'm on the jury, he's going to go free.
That's terrible.
You don't like, do you? I'm right, though. I can't help you like it. I'm right. Because, a man's a man.
Oh, wow. I'm right. Aye. Am I right? You're an am I right, all right? You're right. And that makes it so wrong. You're so wrong being right in that, And you should recognise that that's wrong. And you should be telling people, what the hell am I saying here? And I used to say this. I got that vibe, like this is a 50s man. And he's probably preached hellfire for the pulpit with his fists in the air and his shirt sleeves rolled up, and he's reliving the glory. He's reliving the glory his heydays there. He's getting a wee dopamine hit for picking on survivors, rape survivors, and he's doing it in that wee grander voice for the pulpit. I mean, mate, I'm not condemning you. I'm fucking saying that there's a viral thing that's happened, but that shouldn't be the reason why you're apologising. No. no, he was wrong. He says, but you know, again, it's about motivation. You know, shame was apportioned back to him. Let this be the seeds. I haven't even checked into what's been going on with Bick on it. I don't keep up with gossip in the church. And I know that there'll be a lot of gossip and hearsay flying about. But I believe the victims, you know. So I'll just wait and see, you know. I'll just stay back from it at the moment and maintain that distance, because I find when you get over involved with the details at this point, sometimes it kind of doesn't help. Well, I hope you treat women a wee bit better in the future. I want to express deep regret for the statements made for the pulpit. Money's like a weapon, to get me. You think I'm like as a pastor. Well, my money's like a weapon. I failed. For me. And I apologise for pain it caused. A foolish and sinful statement. You think I'm like the other ones. Well, my cage is a weapon, it's perfect for me. It's the one suit that seem to not see. I'm on my way, not having you heard. We need a complete mindset shift. I can't believe it's 35 plus years on. If I was exploited sexually by a church member and just treated in the most despicable manner, and that person still never apologised. In fact, they're threatening me. I mean, that's the mindset that they're dealing with here. You know, they're trying to smear and throw mud in order to deflect away from the fact that they've never truly owned anything. You know, what they done, they said they wrote a book, but that was a book of lies, and a coward's pen wrote that book, because it didn't own anything, and it was a lot of lies to make yourself look better. So that's not taking responsibility. And going to a priest and telling him everything is trying to escape and dodge the law against, you know, like there's some serious shit that some people need to answer for, and there's some lesser crimes that were done by people who are their victims, and you know, those lesser crimes are blown up to look worse than rape and murder, and flooding the community with death and division and fighting and evil and nastiness, you know, and lust through brothels that destroys families, and porn that destroys men's erections. Now, that's the most important thing to them. First of all, you need to tell them that. But it also destroys their families. It destroys their relationships. And they don't realise that they're being neuro-linguistically programmed when they sit down to watch that shit. You know, you're opening yourself up to mentally and physically to stuff that's having an effect on you. It's having an effect on your brain. The science is in. So the church needs, because they're always doing the strip club inties, and we know that about yous. Yous all come away for your sins, and then yous all go right into that sexual sin, which seems to have this stigma, you know, that yous have put on homosexuality, but yous don't mind paedophilia, that kind of thing. This is what needs to change in the mindset. It's not right. 6 months. It took me to address it. Here's the thing. Black Pumas are brilliant. Here's the thing. Healing will take time, and we're moving in the right direction. That's just not radical enough, for the severity of it. The responsibility that a pastor's got, standing in that pulpit. We're talking about the real evidence. Well, let's do something for the survivors of rape as a church. Let's as a community rally around people who need that support. Because you definitely rally around the rapists and the abusers, right? We've seen that. And you think it's commendable and that's fine or whatever. But when you're treating the victims like that, as though they are the perpetrators, you need to ask yourself why you're so topsy-turvy. How come your thinking's so distorted? No. Oh, and then comparing it to surgery. You're not sick, it's almost criminal, right? We need to stop calling crimes illnesses because they can't be treated with tablets, right? And sympathy, criminal pattern mindsets, if you like. Mental citadels are, people like this comes up, it's saying a church, precept upon precept. This thinking doesn't just appear overnight. It's deeply ingrained. So it's smelling surgery, you know what I mean? I think it's about just getting that old wineskin out, and asking why we entertain these things, But good luck, Julie. I just want to say thank you for your work. Obviously, I'm one of the sort of heretic. I'm the damned, if you like. Well, I don't see myself that way, but I know that the church does because I don't believe anymore. Which I used to think you were perfectly entitled to believe in it, and now I just think, cheeky bastards. Do you know who the hell? I'm just a wee bit fed up with people using Christianity to act superior, to other people. So that's what he's doing. He's using his Christianity to get a wee dopamine hit for a big superiority milkshake at the expense of the rape survivors in his congregation and the people that were listening. So now everybody in the world knows about the church in the North Carolina that blames the victims, especially if they wear shorts. So, good luck, pal. I'm sure there'll still be dafties that will take their veins there right enough. That's the thing about it. Let it be so that culture changes before I toddle off this mortal coil. That would be nice to see. Peace out.